ABC General Hospital spoilers for Wednesday. February 11 revealed that Trina genuinely felt like her world was turning upside down with each new thing she learned. When she finally got herself together enough to sit down with Joss, you could just tell how much everything she'd been bottling up had been weighing heavily on her. She just stared at her hands for a bit, then finally let out what she'd been dreading to say she was losing trust in Portia. It wasn't a sudden loud bang, but a slow aching unraveling. Like strings coming undone from something she used to think could never break. All the lies, the stuff left out, the little ways she was being messed with, it all just piled up until Trina simply couldn't look away anymore. She went to Joss. Joss was the only one who had truly been there for her through thick and thin. The only person who really got what it felt like to be betrayed and have your trust shattered. Trina asked what she was supposed to do now, wondering which way to go when the person who brought her up was also the one causing her so much confusion. Joss listened, her face calm, but also understanding. She knew this wasn't just about Portia. It was about who someone is feeling safe and being able to pick their own way. Trina kept talking, and as she did, it hit her how much fear and anger she'd actually been stuffing down. She mentioned to Joss that her gut feelings, which she used to trust so much, now seemed off. Every choice she tried to make was clouded with doubt, and she just couldn't figure out if Portia was actually helping her or just trying to take over. And as the words spilled out, she admitted something darker, that the fracture between them was widening so quickly that she didn't know if it could ever be repaired. Joss didn't just hand her simple solutions. They didn't exist. Instead, she reminded Trina that stepping away from someone you love, even for a bit, isn't really leaving them. It's about protecting yourself so you can actually think straight. But getting clear about things wasn't exactly free. Trina was about to face some seriously tough stuff, things that would make her see painful truths. She'd have to make choices that could totally change her relationship with Portia and figure out who she really was without her mom calling the shots. What truly scared her was that thought. When Joss reached for Trina's hand, Trina felt a little shiver. It could be the start of something good or maybe just another mess waiting to happen. If she went with her gut and pulled away from Portia, her whole life could really change. Family ties might just break apart. Things could get rough again from past hurts. Things you didn't know were there might just pop out. But staying put felt like a bigger risk. Trina understood she'd stepped into a different world. Her trust wasn't so freely given anymore, and whatever she did next was going to shape her future. The moment that fear and uncertainty squeezed her chest, she realized her talk with Joss wasn't just her telling him what she did, it was the start of something big. She couldn't escape. And so her next move, whatever it turned out to be, was going to change everything. Lucas didn't think the truth would just blow up like that. But when word got out about Marco hitting Sonny, it really messed things up for him. Like a secret he never wanted to face, just exploded. When it finally sank in, it felt like someone punched him in the gut. Not just because Marco had done something truly unforgivable, but because Lucas stupidly thought he still knew the guy he used to call his best friend. He just stared at Marco, a version he barely recognized. Reckless, dangerous, making choices that didn't even make sense in the grimmest parts of Port Charles. When the details came out, Marco planned it, he did it. He didn't even hesitate. Lucas just felt this wave of disillusionment building up. It got heavier and sharper every hour. Even though the betrayal wasn't meant for him, it still hurt him deeply. Like Marco's violent actions had messed with his own sense of right and wrong. The whole mess really sent Lucas into a downward spiral. He was just so frustrated and let down. He'd stuck up for Marco loads of times, even when Marco did some things that just didn't sit right. But this was something he just couldn't make sense of. Sonny was a complicated guy, everyone knew that. People respected him, sure, but they were also pretty scared of him. Lucas definitely understood that attacking Sonny would just mean a full-blown war. And that was the last thing Lucas wanted. Lucas kept replaying what Marco did, and it just hit him harder each time. Marco wasn't at all who Lucas thought he was. What really got to him wasn't just the attack itself, but how Marco acted later super cold. Like he was totally sure he did the right thing, which was pretty disturbing. That kind of arrogance just sucked out any loyalty Lucas might have had. He found himself pulling back not just because of Marco's choices, but from the sudden understanding that he could have been pulled into all the mess without ever agreeing to it. Lucas was really torn. He was mad at Marco for being so careless, but at the same time, it hit him hard that their friendship was totally broken now because of all that violence. Underneath all those feelings, there was this fear that Marco wouldn't quit, that this was just the start of something much worse. Sonny's crew was closing in, and you could feel the tension building all over the city. Lucas realized he had to get out of there fast before Marco dragged him into a fight that would take them both down. But walking away was tough because Lucas always remembered the guy Marco used to be the one who was on his side, not fighting everything they believed in. With everything out in the open, Lucas knew he was in a tough spot. The risk of Marco striking back was getting bigger. And a painful truth hit Lucas. He couldn't trust Marco anymore. The feeling wasn't just about the attack, it was more about seeing that the person he used to look up to wasn't there anymore. When Sunny took Jason aside, his voice showed he'd been through a lot. He settled into that quiet, serious mood where it was all about planning. A second Britt's name came up, Jason just stiffened. Sunny knew that look right away. Britt wasn't just a mission, but more like the emotional mess Jason tried really hard to keep bottled up with all his rules and discipline. Sunny already knew that, and is probably why his advice hit the mark so perfectly. He told Jason that emotion could fuel him, but it could not guide him. There was no way they were in a mission where Cullum and Sidwell were secretly pulling all the strings. They were setting up one trap after another, building a whole battlefield just to find every single weakness. Sunny was really firm that Britt staying safe meant being super careful and precise, not just using brute strength. If Jason had any hope of getting her back, he'd have to do something way more risky than a gunfight. He'd have to take Cullum and Sidwell apart, piece by piece from the inside. They changed their plan right away. Sunny's approach wasn't about raw strength, it was about getting inside people's heads. He used psychological tricks, knowing just when to apply pressure, how to time things, and how to play on their fears. He said Cullum's overconfidence was his chance. Guys like Cullum always thought they were safe, always misjudged the calm before the punch. But Sidwell, he was the actual danger, super calculating, always thinking things through, and totally trained to make any situation a trap. Sunny gave Jason a heads up that Sidwell would be ready for the usual plays, figuring out all the emotional stuff, and totally expecting Jason to be desperate. So Jason realized he had to change. He needed to be more unpredictable, definitely colder, a lot quieter, and seriously smarter than he'd been before. The new plan wasn't about storms, it was about shadows. Ever since Britt vanished, Jason found his anger turning into something a lot more focused. Sunny reminded him that this wasn't just a rescue, they were taking the whole thing apart. Getting to Britt meant they were closer to dismantling the organization Cullum and Sidwell had created using fear, control, and deceit. When Sunny talked, Jason got it. Britt getting kidnapped wasn't just a random thing. It felt like a message, and I knew I had to take down those two guys before they could take over all of Port Charles. They really stuck together, their bond getting stronger because they both wanted the same thing so badly and neither of them was going to let it. Sunny was really good at figuring out where their enemies were vulnerable, and Jason was great at taking those weak spots and turning them into real chances to win. They won as they started moving the distance between them and Cullum, and Sidwell's destruction got shorter. Every step they took not only brought them nearer to Britt, but also to finally stopping the danger. Sunny knew one thing for sure more than anyone else. When Jason really fought for something, everything changed. So with Britt's life on the line, and Sunny really cranking up his plans, Jason Morgan was turning into a force nobody could stop. Cullum and Sidwell didn't know the storm headed their way was way bigger than anything they'd ever gotten ready for. By the time it twigged for them, it was already too late. Charlotte was a kid who knew fear, loneliness, and what grown-ups were really like. But as she got older, those dark feelings turned into her plan. She planned each step, every word she practiced, and every purposeful silence to keep herself near Valentine. He was her safe place, the thing she couldn't stop thinking about. She felt like he was the only person who truly belonged to her, and if anything threatened that bond, she'd get this really intense feeling inside. Nina used to be a part of Charlotte's world, but that feeling had just decayed into bitterness. It was all tangled up with betrayal, confusion, and this persistent idea that Nina had taken something important from her dad's affection, his attention, and his emotional loyalty. So, as Charlotte got older and a bit more, dangerous, she started figuring out how to keep Valentine close. Her main strategy, getting rid of Nina, the person she saw as the biggest problem, nice and quiet like. At first it was just jealousy, but then it morphed into an obsession. Charlotte really thought Nina was messing with Valentine, like she was making him weaker and keeping him from seeing the truth that Charlotte felt, only she understood. The more Valentine tried to make things peaceful, the more Charlotte saw it as Nina getting a stronger grip on him, pulling him away from her. Every time Valentine told Charlotte that Nina meant well, Charlotte felt her chest crack a little more. It was like a pressure building up under her ribs, feeding the storm inside her. She kept playing back all Nina's slip-ups, the lies, the emotional damage, all the times Nina let her father down. Those memories turned into a hard reason in her mind. Charlotte didn't see getting rid of Nina as cruel. She saw it as bringing things back to normal. She was making sure her future with Valentine was safe. It was all about staying alive. Her strategies grew darker with each passing day. She watched Nina like a predator, really getting to know her habits, figuring out what made her tick, what she was bad at, and where she was sensitive emotionally. Charlotte knew Nina's guilt was a real weakness, and she intended to use it to make Nina destroy herself. She was totally obsessed. Valentine was all she thought about from when she woke up till she went to sleep, and she approached every conversation with him like it was some kind of puzzle. She kept telling herself it was all for love, but deep down, what was really going on? Charlotte was just plain scared to lose him. I'm so scared of losing my spot. She was scared to death that the man she loved more than anyone else would just stop seeing her. That fear, it just lit a fire under her. She used to be so lost and mixed up, but her mind really turned into something else. It got super sharp, always pushing. A real powerhouse for planning things, tricking people, and fighting back without making a fuss. Valentin felt a change happening, a chill in her eyes he just couldn't figure out. There was a distance growing, even with her kind voice. Still, he couldn't accept the darkness he sensed in his daughter's heart. That mistake was everything Charlotte wanted. It gave her the space to make her plans. To creep around the edges of Nina's world, and to get herself into spots that nobody even noticed until, well, it was much too late. Charlotte didn't just want Nina out of the picture anymore, it turned into this obsession that guided everything as she got more and more obsessed. A really unsettling question hung in the air. Just how far would she actually go to stay with Valentin? The answer, even though everyone was too scared to say, it got clearer and clearer as time went on. Charlotte wasn't just planning a confrontation. She was planning destruction. Nina had no clue about the storm brewing in those young, troubled eyes. She couldn't have known that the biggest threat she'd ever face wasn't some old enemy from her past, but Valentin's own daughter. Jason almost never sounded rushed, so when he told Carly to be more careful, her stomach dropped. There was a tremble in his usually steady voice, a quiet fear she hadn't heard in ages. Hiding just beneath his calm front, the one he kept hidden from everyone but her. He mentioned that things with Cullum Sidwell and that whole power shift at the WSB were getting out of hand way quicker than anyone thought possible. Things were really out of line. Things were falling apart between groups. Now, the enemies weren't hiding anymore. They were making a direct move toward the people Jason held dear. That meant Carly. Jason was pretty clear the shifts happening behind the scenes weren't minor tweaks. He saw them as the start of a planned attack, a perimeter closing in that would eventually trap her if she didn't listen to what he was saying. Carly tried to brush off the idea at first, her instinctive confidence pushing back. One look in Jason's eyes, though, told her this wasn't paranoia. This was for real. As Jason kept talking, the danger just got clearer and clearer. Someone was watching Carly, keeping tabs on where she went and what she did. Cullum messing up and Sidwell getting desperate really cranked up the aggression. It wasn't about Jason anymore, but about going after the folks who were important to him. Carly found herself smack dab in the middle of a big mess with no idea how she got there. Jason was real familiar with that move. If his enemies couldn't get to him straight on, they'd always go after the one person he'd truly do anything for. Carly really was a target, not just a guess, it was a plan. Someone set this up to mess with Jason's head to back him into a corner until he slipped up. As Jason kept pointing out the pattern, Carly started to grasp just how much she'd misjudged the danger that was getting closer. But the real scare was when Jason said the danger wasn't just what-ifs anymore. Someone tried to get into the Metrocourt security system, which is supposed to be off-limits. She realized someone had trailed her when she left Kelly's in the dead of night. Someone got to her private package first, swapping it out for a scary warning that was clearly meant to freak her out. Carly's breath hitched. She started putting together all the little things she just ignored before those shadows that stayed around too long. Footsteps right behind her that disappeared when she looked. And that weird feeling of being watched even when no one else was there. She just figured it was stress. But now she saw it for what it truly was, the calm before the storm. Jason's warning wasn't just to keep me safe, it was a clever move. He let her know that what happened next was all up to her. If she messed up just once, everyone would see what she was truly bad at. If they showed even a hint of fear, their enemies would get a major boost. She had to switch things up, keep people guessing, and only put her faith in the few folks Jason had given his okay. The unfolding nightmare wasn't just about Jason's enemies looking for leverage. It was about getting even. Cullum's whole network fell apart. Sidwell was really stuck with no way out, and they both put all the blame on Jason for spilling the beans. Going after Carly wasn't simply about getting even, it was about sending a clear message. For the first time in ages, Carly felt something that completely unnerved her, a fear she couldn't get a grip on. Jason made her feel calm, even though what he told her completely rocked her world. This time, it wasn't her regular fight against corporate rivals or family drama. This was a matter of life and death, it was a war she just wasn't ready for. With Jason's silent pledge to keep her safe, Carly understood the scary reality the nearer Jason and Sunny got to getting rid of Cullum and Sidwell, the nearer she got to being next in line. If she didn't adapt fast, the disaster coming her way wouldn't just be scary, it would kill her.